but each word there is a very, very heavyweight word, and on each word you can actually start thinking and probably getting mad about it, thinking about it for 3 days, right? So they are very heavy words, just keep that in mind. And as far as the content, there's only one slide, which is the content slide. Totally 3 slides. First slide is title slide, last slide is about me, and the actual content is this one. Okay, so let's get there. Okay, so the theme was agility and business value, right? And the title I gave was Agile drives value. I have not called business value. I said Agile drives value. Really? That was my question. Right? How many of you got this question anytime? Does Agile drive value, or does value drive agility? Okay, let's be very specific. Agility drives value. So before we get there, let's think about what is value. Any ideas? Anything worth it? Okay.
Anything that is needed for me at that particular point of time.
Needed for you at that particular point of time. Okay. Okay, so what I've done is, just to make this thinking even more interesting, I have prepared 4 scenarios which I've given you to different groups. Just get into a 2-minute discussion. Imagine that you are in that scenario, and then you have to tell me what is
No. See the charging is that's okay. 1 point. What's the reliable charge?
It's 2 minutes. Your 2 minutes time box is starting now.
Let's note it down somewhere. What we think. We don't want to discuss more here.
Ajay. 30 seconds more.
We are done.
Okay, so done.
So I had one.
Okay, let's stop in the next 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's start. Pause. So, the time box. Welcome to the Agile world. Okay. So, each table is just going to tell us what you should brief us on what was the scenario, and the answer for the question is same for all the teams. What is business value and who is it for? But scenario needs to be mentioned. Any of you? So,
scenario is that you are an offshore center, your counterpart or the head office is forcing you to use Agile. What is the business value and who is it for? I mean, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but we probably answer the first question, that is, what is the business value, and define the transparency is the #1 business value, that it's very transparent. Second is the faster production, because that delivery is, it's like, divided into pieces with a timely effort. The production things can be faster, and at least the customer can start seeing that what he has asked.
You know what, you never have any interface with customer. Your offshore, your headquarters will just force you to go Agile. That's it.
They just want say something to change them.
Because they have decided to go Agile for whatsoever reason, you are just asked to go Agile.
We assume that they wanted that.
So if I just generally ask what is value, and you give a lot of definition, and if I ask who is it for, by default answer is for the customer. But are all our scenarios same, right? When this happens in this scenario, right? When you're asked to go, right? The value might change, or the value might be there only to certain extent, or maybe the value is required by your headquarters, but not necessarily the end customers. Most of the times it will be linked, but the value definition suddenly changes when you're forced to. But if you're educated on what is the vision, why you're going Agile and things like that, and if you're bought into the journey, that's a different case. Most of the time what happens is, headquarters is doing it and we are asked to do it.
Yes, because the question which I as a team, you get company forces, you
Yeah.
follow this organization, you follow this part of budget, you follow this part of
We will be
budget.
given some budgets and we have to ensure that we spend some dollars to agile education. That's it. This is the mandate. Okay, thank you. So next, this.
Partner companies forcing you to use Agile. What is the business value and who is it?
Okay, so in this scenario, this is one company and they are co-developing something with another partner company. Because the partner company is using agile practices and they're quite dominant. In true sense, they are not partner, but so you're forced to do agile. So what is the value? How do you realize it?
Because the time to market is very less and transparency again, and there's an early feedback, and Agile brings in accommodating to changes very easily.
Okay.
Responding to change.
Okay. So this could be an example where you have a shared responsibility of realizing the value because you're working with a partner company, but the reality depends on how good is your relationship as a partner. Are you getting dominated? Are you getting forced? Or are you both in sync, focusing on actually customer
Creating
goals?
trust.
Yeah. And it is going to deeply impact the actual implementation of that. The value, theoretically it might be safe, but you may not be able to realize it. Okay, the third thing is.
For us, you as a company have collectively decided to use Agile to both survive and succeed in the business.
Okay.
So what's the business value?
So, do you guys identify this as a typical scenario? The scenario says you as a company and all the employees have collectively decided to go Agile for obvious reason of surviving and succeeding in a competitive market to build winning products. So, any associations, what kind of a company would be in this scenario? Most startups. Most startups, right? If they have decided to use Agile, the only way for them to survive is to actually use good Agile practices. Or maybe that could be their chance.
Or maybe the big ones.
Yeah, big ones. Yeah, the product companies or usually the product companies. It's very maybe in services companies, some division of some service company would have decided. That in a sense, that's a startup division within a service company. Right. So, what is business value for you?
Minimum viable product.
Minimal viable product. Okay.
Time to market.
Quicker time to market. So these are all some of the benefits. This is not really the meaning of value, but like Ravi said in the morning, right? It cannot be just defined in one single thing, right? For some of the customers, if you just deliver the differentiator in the Kano model, like the wow factor, that could be a value for them, right? Or if you're a first mover in some particular domain, so time to market as quickly as possible. If you can get those one or two features and get some traction, that could be the value. So it just depends.
How do you measure it? Like how you should be something.
Oh, okay, so that's a big study. Not getting to that. So in fact, my talk would be not even defining or understanding value and agility, but just to see how they are related. Okay, because half an hour is not sufficient to really do that. Okay, so coming to the last one.
Yeah, the scenario is your customers are asking you to use Agile. They think it's cool and beneficial to them. What is the business value and who is it for?
Sure. Any thoughts? So here in this case, it's customers, right? Have you seen the scenario? Some of the companies like typical services company, our customers want us to be agile because it's true, it's a buzzword everywhere. Right? So, what do you guys think?
Yeah, what we thought the business value that we deliver is quicker time to market, good return on investment from the customer. I mean, what the customer is doing.
Sure.
Quick feedback and routing mechanism.
Sure.
So, and we continuously improve it.
Right.
And who is it for? We think it's a win-win situation for all the stakeholders,
Right.
and it's mutually beneficial to everyone.
Okay, so I think, yeah, very good points there. So there are a couple of advantages and disadvantages with this approach. If the customers are asking and they have some reason, right? Unless it's a reason where it's cool and fancy, except those reasons, if they do realize that Agile can help us, Agile way of working can help us, it's a big advantage because one of the biggest hurdles in Agile implementation is to educate customers on working the Agile way. If the customer themselves are asking, they have already the required mindset and probably it's about executing and then realizing the value. But if it is the other reason, right, where they think that everyone is doing Agile and so just work on Agile, there is a very good chance that they don't understand. But so who is this value for, right? the reason why I wrote this question is, general common sense answer is always for customer. But when these kind of scenario exists, different units, for example, headquarters has a different reason why they started Agile. Or maybe the branch offshore unit has a different reason, right? So the value, so there's an ROI for the overall company, there is an ROI for the initiative started at the local unit. So value is a very abused term if you don't have that scenario in mind, right? Otherwise it's just a simple thing, right? It is for customer, but various instances, the intent or the reason behind going Agile could be very different, and hence all the leaders who are prominently playing the role, whether as a coach or an executive leader or whoever is driving Agile, need to be very clear about what the scenario is and really identify the real value. Okay, so that's just a little context about value. So, and then we have agility. Any thoughts around what is the meaning of agility? In the morning.
Responding to change.
Pardon?
Responding to change.
Responding to change. Okay. Any thoughts? Any other thoughts?
Continuous change. Continuous change.
Continuous change. Ability to change continuously.
Flexible improvement. Continuous improvement.
Continuous improvement.
In terms of flexibility.
Flexibility. Okay. Having a mindset. Focus on improvement. So all these
Providing
things
better
that
value.
okay.
Consistently providing the value.
Sure.
That is
A lot of what you said are actually the benefits of agility or going agile or being agile. But agility, in my experience, I'm speaking here of my experience of practicing agile from past 11 years now. I started with XP long back, and the last 3 years I've driven at least 3 to 4 large-scale agile transformation, not just alone, along with a bunch of other coaches. So agility is a state of mind. There's nothing beyond that. Agility is a state of mind. But state of mind for what? So are you willing to, do you have the conviction to make things happen? And are you ready to make things happen? That's the main, having conviction means, are you really ready for making things happen? Right? And are you really on the action, the doer side, right? So if you're agile in your mind, which is agility, the state of mind, that means you're ready to do something, right? And you're willing to do it. Provided you have right direction, you know what you're trying to do, then the agility is really useful. So that's why it's very important to recognize that there are two aspects of value. If you just see the word value, the theme of this session was agility and business value. Business value is definitely for the end customer, and sometimes, depending on the scenario, there will be intermediate stakeholders. And they are also called agile values, right? Those of you, I'm assuming that most of you have gone through Agile Manifesto, and I think one of the earlier speakers also showed principles. So agile values and business value, and how they are related to agility, and even within agility there are a couple of terms we need to recognize. One is execution agility, the other one is business agility. Some of the terms that you guys use, being able to respond quicker or being able to adapt, flexible, we're talking about business agility. These are business structured in such a way that we are able to respond to the changing needs or the dynamics of the market. Execution agility is almost boils down to each and every individual's capability of making things happen on the ground, executing it, doing it, actually doing it, right? That's execution agility. Do you have a culture which supports execution agility? For example, a lot of us understand what agile is, what agile value is, and if you also realize that we need to make some fundamental changes, if there is a right culture which supports that, okay, which is what people keep saying, we've got a senior management buy-in for our agile transformation, right? So how many of you think we'll be successful in agile transformation if we get a senior management buy-in? 4 or 5.
Only senior management.
So top leadership management buy-in. A lot of people keep making the statement in the conferences I keep hearing. We were a senior management buy in our company and the transformation we are on the full zone, right? But do you think that is just enough? No. A lot of people say, yes, I bless you, and they just go on for golf, right, as an executive. If there is no involvement of those leaders in driving day-to-day decision making, critical decision making, especially organizational impairment removal and things like that, if there is no involvement, the earlier part was this commitment. Yes, we are committed, we understand, but a lot of large-scale agile transformation especially fail if the leaders fail in execution, and that's what we're talking about, execution agility. Not just leaders, as someone rightly pointed out. Every level, there needs to be an execution agility, and it can be driven by good leaders in the organization. So if you want to read them, the terms, the very misused and abused terms, in probably a more appropriate manner, I'm not going to call right or wrong. You can read this from left to right. Your execution agility drives business value. That means the only way to realize business value using agile practices is by actually being agile at the execution. Not just understanding what Scrum is, what daily Scrum is. But when you actually go to implement, we hit upon a lot of roadblocks and organizational policies and the barriers, and are the leaders committed to come and do things, create a space, change the culture. One of the most common thing that pulls an agile transformation in the opposite direction is your appraisal system. The developers are paid for creating bugs, and testers are paid for identifying code, right? Logging tickets. If that is what is the appraisal system, which is pulling in one direction, and agile is talking about go work as a team, right? And you'll start caring about, okay, what happens to my bug now and my implement. So, and there is a fundamental need of changing such cultures, or if it's possible, scrapping the system, appraisal system itself. There are plenty of other ways to measure how people are effective and to incentivize people based on the work, etc. A lot of serious agile companies do that. I'm pretty sure in iSense they would have tried a couple of them instead of just clinging with traditional appraisal measurement system. So execution agility drives business value, whereas agile values drive business agility. That means it doesn't matter how many trainings and how many workshops like this you attend, but if you don't internalize the agile values as a team members or as leaders or as members of the organization, you won't be able to achieve business agility. And when I say internalizing agile values, it is across the board. That's why I'm calling business agility. It's not just in the team members, not just in the ops, so the DevOps concept, not just in the support function. There is a change in the alignment from the HR system, for example, hiring the guys. So there was a statement, I think this was about 6 years back when Agile was booming in India. People used to say, the HR, they used to say, hired for attitude, trained for skills. Right? So just look for good attitude guys and train for skills. That still holds good, true today also, but then we also need knowledgeable guys, and that's what's the realization, right? You just can't just get some good guys and then if they are pathetic in the execution, you fail in the execution actually. And that is less to do with skills, that is more to do with individual accountability and the ability to being accountable, right? So this you can read from right to left. Agile values actually will help us in that way. And Scrum is Scrum, right? Scrum is not Agile. XP is not Agile. This is, a lot of people get confused with this, right? If you are you doing Agile? Yes, we are doing stand-up, right? Or yes, we are doing Scrum. No, Agile, being Agile is actually, are we internalizing these values, which really elevate the whole thinking at a very top level. In terms of how do we work with people, how do we collaborate, and how do we create those environments where there is minimum overhead and people are allowed, empowered to make sensible decisions, what they believe are good, right? And Agile values internalizing is about really understanding them to begin with, and also nurturing, right? They need to be nurtured, like our value systems are nurtured by our parents and whenever we are growing up, right? That needs to be nurtured in an organization. That can bring business agility, that can drive. and execution agility drives business value. So this was the concept I just wanted to demonstrate. And I'm almost towards the end of my topic, and I've actually recently spoke in a seminar with a topic called scale agile delivery. Okay, is there a single bottleneck? Okay, that was the topic. I think you can just Google it. It's there in the slide share, where I mentioned in a scale scenario, right? So when you're talking about a simple agile team implementation, execution agility becomes very prominent. Imagine about scale scenario. There are lots of problems where things can go wrong, and majority of them boils down to the leadership team not being able to exhibit execution agility in their work, in their role, in their actual responsibility. So you can find more details about this, but just to conclude this topic, I'm going to play a small video, and towards the end I have some message. So let me play this video.
There's a story I'd like to share with you. It was inspired by the writings of Loren Eiseley. Eiseley was a very special person because he combined the best of two cultures. He was a scientist and a poet. And from those two perspectives, he wrote insightfully and beautifully about our world and our role in it. Once upon a time, there was a wise man, much like Eiseley himself, who used to go to the ocean to do his writing. He had a habit of walking on the beach before he began his work. One day, he was walking along the shore. As he looked down the beach, he saw a human figure moving like a dancer. He smiled to himself to think of someone who would dance to the day. So he began to walk faster to catch up. As he got closer, he saw that it was a young man, and the young man wasn't dancing, but instead he was reaching down to the shore, picking up something, and very gently throwing it into the ocean. As he got closer, he called out, "Good morning, what are you doing?" The young man paused, looked up, and replied, "Throwing starfish in the ocean." "I guess I should have asked, why are you throwing starfish in the ocean? The sun is up, and the tide is going out. And if I don't throw them in, they'll die." "But young man, don't you realize that there are miles and miles of beach and starfish all along it? You can't possibly make a difference." The young man listened politely, then bent down, picked up another starfish, and threw it into the sea past the breaking waves. It made a difference for that one. His response surprised the man. He was upset. He didn't know how to reply. So instead he turned away and walked back to the cottage to begin his writings. All day long as he wrote, the image of that young man haunted him. He tried to ignore it, but the vision persisted. Finally, late in the afternoon, he realized that he, the scientist, he, the poet, had missed the essential nature of the young man's actions. Because he realized that what the young man was doing was choosing not to be an observer in the universe and watch it pass by, but was choosing to be an actor in the universe and make a difference. He was embarrassed. That night he went to bed, troubled. When morning came, he awoke, knowing that he had to do something. So he got up, put on his clothes, went to the beach, and found the young man. And with him he spent the rest of the morning throwing starfish in the ocean. You see, what that young man's action represents is something that is special in each and every one of us. We have all been gifted with the ability to make a difference. And if we can, like that young man, become aware of that gift, we gain, through the strength of our visions, the power to shape the future. And that is your challenge. That is my challenge. We must each find our starfish. And if we throw our stars wisely and well, I have no questions but the 21st century is going to be a wonderful place. Remember, vision without action is merely a dream. Action without vision just passes the time. Vision with action can change the world.
That was Joel Barker, one of the prominent guys who made leadership, term called leadership for 21st century, who emphasizes a lot on action, right? Vision coupled with action can yield results. And the same thing definitely applies to agile work, because in my last 4 to 5 years of consulting experience, I have seen both successes and failures, and more failures, to be honest. A lot of failures have nothing to do with what Agile is, what Scrum is. It is to do with failure of people for implementing it, especially the leadership. Okay, if we're not talking about one small pilot team which does something, gets some benefits, try to spread the news, they're all good. But when you really talk about realizing the business value, it's a huge word, heavy word. If you really want to realize business value, it has to be coupled with actual execution agility. Right? And so you can spend time with me offline on discussing various problems that can happen in realistic implementation, whether it's like 10 teams or I've worked with teams that scale from 200 teams to 200 members to 4,000 members. In a 4,000 member organization, we were about 12 coaches working worldwide in 10 different countries. So I've got some insight into the actual execution problems, and this is my last message I want to do. I'll just use that pattern of Joel Barker. These are the ones. Business value without execution agility is merely a dream. You can never realize business value without execution agility, especially at the leadership roles. Business agility, talking about this, without agile values. If you're not driven by the core agile values, it just creates an illusion that we are actually trying to. So this is what we call doing agile versus being agile, right? You might be doing agile without realizing the values, without being driven by the agile values. Then it's only an illusion. And the execution agility driven by agile values can transform the business. Okay, so that's the message I want to resist, and that's all. Okay, and that's a little bit about me, and you can get in touch with me for any future queries. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, JP.